The second topic that we're going to deal with in this presentation is writing a literature review. Now, you should have already started with your literature review when selecting your research topic. You cannot really select a research topic without having done some preliminary reading. So in many ways, your literature review starts when you're selecting the topic. But now we have a topic, and what we want to do now is to create a literature review that complements that topic and leads seamlessly into your research methodology. A literature review is a very important part of your research and a very important part of your dissertation. For a start, it demonstrates your knowledge of the subject. Assessors of dissertations want to see that you can confidently handle the topic, confidently handle the ideas of other people, and this comes through in your literature search. It also helps you in refining your thinking with regard to your research question, and also informs the methodology. Reading literature, and particularly good examples of studies that have been carried out by other people, is also a useful guide as to the kind of research that you can do, or the kind of research you should be doing in handling a particular topic. And most importantly, it offers the reader some evidence to support your own particular research. So what should a literature review contain? And where should we go for this particular literature? Your literature review should contain key theories, key studies, and a fairly broad selection of more up-to-date material. Why key theories and key studies? Well, anyone looking at your report when you finished it will expect you to have covered any important theory, any important study. If you miss them out, then this is going to count against you when your dissertation is being assessed. Why more up-to-date studies? Well, more up-to-date studies should give you a state-of-the-art picture of that particular subject area, and also should give you a summary of all the studies that have gone before. You don't need to spend an awful lot of time talking about the key theories or about the historic studies in your particular field, but at least you want to make sure that you've mentioned them. It might be useful to establish some parameters for your literature search. These parameters are clearly going to be made by the subject that you have chosen. You might even wish to restrict your search to a certain publication period. And almost certainly you should restrict your search to the type of publication that is available. The type of publication is very, very important. For any piece of academic work, your first port of call should be academic journal articles. These are what would be expected in any good dissertation. And I would advise you to start your search in the better academic journals. How do we know what is a good academic journal? Well, many of these are rated in research exercises, and your tutor at college should be able to give you advice as to what is a 3-star or 4-star, as we call the better journals in academic literature. A good example of a 4-star journal, for example, would be the American Academy of Management Journal or the Academy of Management Review. A 4-star journal in the United Kingdom would be something like the British Journal of Industrial Relations. A good 3-star journal would be the Journal of Management Studies. As well as academic journals, you can also refer to specialist texts. I say specialist texts because one thing that you should avoid is making specific reference to very simple, general textbooks that you may be using on part of your course. What these textbooks have done is take the work of others and summarise them in a handy, usable form for students. What you should be doing is going to the work that they have used in compiling their textbooks. So aim for only specialist texts and not general textbooks. Other important sources could come from government reports. These are a good source of both opinion but also offering you data. National government reports are useful, but also supranational bodies like the United Nations offer excellent reports and excellent data produced by such organisations as the United Nations Organisation for Trade and Development, UNCTAD, or World Bank would be another good example. You can also use good newspapers. By these, for a business-related project, I would recommend things like the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal. Inevitably, many of you are going to use the internet. And I believe this should come with a serious health warning. The internet can be a good tool, particularly if you use search engines such as Google Scholar. And Google Scholar is a search engine that I recommend you all use to access good journal articles in the field that you're researching. But much of the material that's on the internet should be used with caution. For example, never use any material that hasn't got an author. And I would stick to the internet material that is a recognised publication, that is a web-based form of, say, an academic journal. That would be a useful use of the internet. Several students I know use Wikipedia. Wikipedia can be an interesting source of ideas, and it can lead you to very important journal articles. But it's highly variable, and if you want academic credibility, then never, never use Wikipedia as a key reference. So we've determined what kind of material we're going to look at. What we want to look at now is how we approach that particular material. Your first guide should be your research question. The literature that you follow should follow very closely your research question. But what advice can I give you? Well, the first advice I can give you may sound very, very obvious, and that is read. I've seen so many students collect and hoard material that they photocopied, which they never ever use in their research and never ever use in their printed literature review. Don't photocopy, don't hoard, only photocopy those journal articles you're going to come back to. So the important thing is to read them and don't hoard them. In presenting your research literature, then I would advise you always to move from the broad to the specific. Go from general theory to your specific research questions. In looking at this literature, always assess the strengths and weaknesses of what other people have written. Do not be afraid to challenge what they've written. In fact, an important part of your literature research should be to confront the ideas of others. But when presenting this literature in your write-up, don't present it as a bus timetable. Don't present it as a catalogue of the work of different authors. Your literature research should be a synthesis. A good way to help you with this synthesis is to create a matrix. Write down the authors on the left-hand side of the paper and put the topics across the top. What you can then do is find out how many authors have looked at which specific topics. And a good way of presenting your literature is to present it by topic rather than author. This then avoids this catalogue of Maslow said this, Hertzberg said this, McGregor said this, all of which is not a very good way of presenting your literature. A key element of all this would be the references. And I would advise you to collect those references in your final reference list as you go along. For one thing, it saves you a lot of work at the end of your project when in fact you're perhaps running up against deadlines and running out of time. I'll come on to references in a moment. The final piece of advice here, though, is to deal with plagiarism. You are well aware that universities now are very keen to stamp out plagiarism in all student work. And many universities now use software such as Turnitin to check the plagiarism of your coursework and things like this particular research project. The literature review that you're carrying out is a danger area for plagiarism. It is very easy when reading academic journals to write down the ideas of others in the words that they use. These then become your notes. You come along to write this up, and you end up writing out the words of other people when you should be using your own words. My advice to you is, in making notes from the journals or textbooks, only ever use your own words. Transpose the ideas of others into words that you yourself would use, unless, of course, you want to do a direct quotation and put that as part of your literature survey. That's perfectly acceptable. But let's get back to referencing. Good referencing is crucial. Poor referencing will lose you marks as well as credibility. So what is good referencing? There are a number of techniques available, a number of methods available. The one that most of us prefer as academics is the Harvard referencing method. Not only is this widely used, it's fairly simple to use, and I believe it looks better in the text. If you're doing a research methods course, then you will cover the Harvard referencing system. If you're not doing such a course, then Examples of the Harvard system can be found in any how-to-study book, any book on writing university essays or dissertations, or any research methodology book. As an adjunct to this presentation, you will be seeing some examples of the Harvard method as in both texts, books, and in academic journals. The key thing with the Harvard system is that it contains a number of conventions. Get used to these conventions and make them a habit. Once you've done that, referencing is very, very simple.